Hello, this is Michael Butterfield. I'm doing my sharing video for the week. I'm going to do this week's on CSS3 transitions and transforms. At first, I was kind of having a hard time understanding the difference between the two, like transitions and transforms, without looking at the code. Because when you look at the code, it will say something like transform, so many degrees, or that it just says it in the syntax. But if you're just looking at a page, I think this was the easiest way to determine the difference between transitions and transforms. And I found this on W3 Schools. But it said that CSS3 transitions allows you to change property values smoothly. So it's over a given duration. So it's like over a time period. So I'll show you an example of this later. But you can specify how the transition speed flows. So for example, if ease, you can use like ease. It specifies a transition effect that starts slow, then fast, and then it ends slow. So the middle is fast with that. And then like linear, that's just kind of the same speed throughout the whole thing. Ease in and ease out, there's like a slow start or a slow end, depending on where you want the ease. And then ease in out is a slow start and a slow end. So that kind of sounds similar to ease, but it's ease in and ease out. They're similar. And then there's like this one, cubic BEZIER, and that lets you define your own values. And so this here, this NNN, that's kind of the values that you would enter and define your own when you're coding that yourself. And so transforms, those are kind of instant instead of slow transition, like over a period of time, they're just instant. So that's kind of the differences that I saw if you're looking for the differences between CSS3 transitions and transform. So with transform, there's like translate, and that's this one here. My example here, you can see pretty much what it does is it just moves it. It moves the element. And then there's rotate, and as you probably guessed, that rotates it. There's scale. As you guessed, that changes the scale. It makes it bigger or smaller. There's skew X and Y, and skew. And there's matrix, which kind of does the same thing. You imagine it like this here in Photoshop doesn't do it justice because the words on it are still flat. But imagine if you're like seeing the words at an angle. That's kind of what matrix and skew can do. But with the difference between matrix and skew, I know they like looked at similar. But kind of when you're coding it, like if you skew something, you pick the axis like X or Y, and then you can use the transform keyword. That's how you know it's a transform and not a transition, like I was saying earlier, by the way. But that was off topic. So you can just do like a skew X or Y, and then you add the degrees that you want it to skew. And with matrix, it's more customizable because you can enter in all the values. This is kind of just an example code that you would do. You can do like transform matrix, and it's a lot more customizable because you can do your own values. And I have a few examples on my website that I would like to show you. So first of all, I was wondering, my group is proposing a flashcards application. I was like wondering what you could do with transition and transform. So I made a default flashcard, or not a default flashcard, a demo flashcard that you can hover the mouse over. This uses both transition and transform. I'll show you the code later. But it's what is the default subnet mask for Class C IP address, and then you hover over it and it says 255.255.255.0. So that's kind of a cool animation that we could do if we were doing flashcards. And I was also thinking what else we could do using just transitions. And maybe we could have like a timer if we wanted a timed function in our flashcards application. So hover your mouse here to use the 10-second timer, and you can use that. You can specify the duration in transitions. So that's what's nice about this. So you can hover your mouse over it, and it kind of gives you, the green is your time left, and it gives you kind of a timer that you can use if you're running through some flashcards. And then transform, those are just kind of instant, and as I was saying, and this is a tilt, or this is the rotate one that I showed you in. Yeah, it's rotate. And so let's take a look at the code for these. First, let's start with the flashcard because this one was the most complicated. It uses both transition and transform. So what you have to do is you have to have multiple divs within this one flashcard so you can kind of maneuver it correctly and make it like you have to have one for the front, and you have to have one for the back, and you have to have one for, I guess, the surface of the card, which kind of includes the front and the back, and then you have to have one for everything. So it took me a while to get this right because I kept running into problems. But so you use, as far as transition and transform goes, this it would take a little too long to explain everything. So it basically uses the transform style perspective 3D, and then that kind of gives you the 3D perspective of it actually flipping. And this is what makes it look like it flips, is this transition is all 1.0's linear. And what makes it so the other side is actually displayed is this transform. Rotate Y 180 degrees. That's a rotate, as you saw before in the PowerPoint. And then this is what makes it so the front is shown, like by default, this rotate Y 180 degrees. And then because without it, it would show the back by default. And so you kind of have to specify. And you have to use this is what was hardest for me, was using the class within the divs. So you have your div IDs, but then you also have to use classes. That was, or maybe you can do it with just IDs, but I was reading a tutorial online and some tips online that you have to use the classes too. So that's part of what was hard for me, was getting that figured out. But I got it to work, and I think it looks all right. And then for my timer that I just showed you, this one's a little more simple. It just uses a transition. So what happens is you have your div, and I did the ID time left, and then another div, I did my div ID timer. So the time left div, all that is it's just a green background because it shows you how much time is left. So it's just a green background for the actual timer. And then the timer div, you hover your mouse over it, and it uses a transition. I guess I didn't change the seconds. I need to go back and change the seconds to 10 seconds for Safari. But if you're using like Safari, then you need to use this WebKit transition. But the standard syntax is just transition with 10 seconds. And what that does is it makes it grow over the 10 seconds. And then you specify with hover, that's when it grows and how much it grows. And it grows to 400 pixels. And the transition timing function is linear. Because remember how we were going over how it can be slow at the beginning or the end and fast in the middle. And linear just makes it all smooth throughout the whole thing. So if I'm using a timer, this would be the best bet, the best way to do it. And then last, for my tilt example, I'm sorry, my rotate, but it makes it tilt. Yeah, this one's the easiest of all. Basically, it's just one div. The ID is, I named it transform. And then so in my style sheet, I transform it. I declare its dimensions, and it has a border. So this kind of just draws it. And then my transform, when I hover it, I just use the standard syntax is transform, rotate 20 degrees. It's that easy. But then if you're like on Safari or Internet Explorer, it has some different syntax like MS transform or WebKit transform. But basically all it is transform, rotate 20 degrees. It's really easy. So there are some great things that we could do with this CSS transform and transitions. Both are great. Like I think this turned out really nice. My little demo flashcard. I'm actually happy with it because it was getting frustrating for a minute, but I got it. So if you have any questions, this will be in the Google community. Just post them there, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you.